Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am your host for the show. We got a lot to get into today, guys. Obviously, Bitcoin is not looking so great, but neither is the rest of the markets, right? So we're going to get into why Bitcoin is obviously getting decimated. And it actually got down to 80,000 last night and trying to work its way back up. But gold and silver have pulled back even more aggressively. So I actually think that Bitcoin's in a little better place than precious metals, right? But before we get into anything, I'm going to ask you guys on the YouTube side to smash that like and subscribe to the channel. And on the X side, if you could share the space, I would greatly appreciate that. And shout out to all the communities from Abstract, Bitcoin ecosystem, Solana, everywhere. And it's Friday, so at least we are heading into the weekend, right? That is definitely at least one good thing outside of the markets that we can look forward to here. But yeah, we're going to hit on a bunch of stuff. Bitcoin under pressure, leverage, a ton of leverage got wiped out last night. The past 24 hours, you're talking $1.7 billion of liquidations in the crypto markets. And to put that into perspective, during the COVID fiasco, right? We actually had 1.2 billion in liquidation. So you think about COVID, and that was, you think about it, it's like way bigger than what we're going through right now, in my opinion. And we actually had about 500 million more liquidations from the past 24 hours versus COVID. We're also going to hit on Trump's pick, right? Kevin Warsh. That is an interesting pick. People initially thought it was going to be bullish for Bitcoin and crypto, but it actually might not be so bullish in the beginning because there is a lot of speculation that he might not be, the best pick for Bitcoin initially because of his perspectives on quantitative easing and what he might do. Now, I think that is more FUD by, the media and just trying to FUD the pick. I'm actually pretty bullish on, the expectations about him wanting to cut rates as soon as he gets in. So I think that is more FUD than anything. All right, we're also going to hit on, there is a bet on Polymarket as well that shows Bitcoin probably will fall below 55,000 rather than rallying past 120,000 this year. So that is obviously not the best news if that plays out. And then Binance and CZ seems to be constantly in drama. Even though he came out and said that he is going to commit $1 billion of their safe food funds and stable reserves to buy Bitcoin over the next 30 days. So we'll hit on that. Another thing that's really, really interesting that's happening in the AI autonomous network is another project is emerging and it's gaining a ton of strength. We're talking about really getting over $40 million in market cap this morning. And I think there's a good reason why. I don't think it's just degens rotating into the next thing here. But before we get into the main topic, I do want to give a shout out to Carta.trade. As you can see, they are the Pyro.buzz, a sponsor for the show today, and they are having a TGE on Pump Fund. I have worked with a couple of the members of their team, and they are definitely really focused on their product, which is a trading terminal with real-time market maps, right? So it is focused on the Solana ecosystem, but like I always say, do your research on any project that you get into. But I did want to give them a shout out before we start our main topic here. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin being under pressure. I'm going to bring up the chart here and show you what I mean by being under pressure in terms of a price perspective. As you can see here, Bitcoin got down to 80,000, like 81,000, right below 81,000 yesterday around 8 p.m. after, all the markets crashed and then finally started to work its way up, right? But I did not expect Bitcoin to get down this far, honestly. I thought it would show more strength in the $83,000, $84,000 mark, but everything was continually crashing, right? As I mentioned earlier today, so Bitcoin and precious metals kind of switched. They flip-flopped, right? You see gold down 6% today, silver down 15%. It was kind of Bitcoin being down, yesterday around 4 to 5%, and ETH being down around 6 to 7. So not as intense as what gold and silver is today, but Bitcoin seems to be having better day on the second day rather than gold and silver and precious metals, right? They're getting hit way harder. So for the people that continually talk about precious metals and how they are showing strength, I wouldn't be so sure about that. This could be their local top that we just ran into with this pullback, right? But looking at Bitcoin here, it's definitely continually going down, right? You can still see like this downtrend hasn't broken yet. So until this actually breaks and we actually get this line broken to where we can actually start an uptrend, I would actually expect this to continue, right? And this is the hour chart, but I think the hour chart is okay to use after everything that happened yesterday, right? So let's talk about some reasons why this probably happened, right? PPI came in at 3%, which is much higher than what was expected at 2.7%. And then core PPI also came in at 3.3%, which is a decent amount higher than what was expected as well at 2.9%. So what does that mean, right? Honestly, in my opinion, it means that we're not going to get a rate cut for quite some time, right? Jay Powell's not going to look at this data and say, hey, it's time to cut rates, right? For the next Fed decision. And it also could be telling for some of these manufacturers, or not manufacturers, but some of these retailers that are getting their goods from the manufacturers that are having to maybe foot the bill a little bit from these tariff costs, right? So we've had situations like this in the past to where PPI has jumped up a little bit, but it's always rebalanced. So for me, what I'm going to be focusing on is, hey, how does it react the next time we get this data? That's going to be very, very important in my opinion. But I do think that is a big reason why Bitcoin is continuing down. And then you see, like I mentioned earlier, the precious metals are also going down as well, even more aggressively, right? So people just want more consistency, and this definitely does not bring that. Let's see what else we have here. All right, I just hit on this. So $5 trillion was actually wiped from gold and silver markets in the past 24 hours, right? And that was obviously huge, right? Everybody was so bullish on precious metals. Where are they going to put their money now is the question, right? So if you look at gold here and pull gold up here on the hour chart, I mean, it's just, this is even worse than what I just showed you with Bitcoin, right? So, and you pull up the daily as well. I mean, look at that. That is a horrible, horrible daily gold chart there. And you try to go back to an area to where we last had this experience, and you go back to October 21st, right? For gold, and gold did have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8 to 10 days of a pullback. But this looks, very similar to this candle here. So, people are going to be wondering, where are people going to put their money, right? Where are they going to put their money since gold is selling down? It doesn't seem safe as much anymore. And for the people that got into silver, it's even worse. It's below $100 now. Right. So you're definitely seeing, all this pullback, and then, where do you put your money? And then you go back to the Dixie here, and then you can see the Dixie right here is pulling back up. So the dollar showing strength again. So we hit on this stuff yesterday for sure. What is up? Jason Secar, he says GMXCN. What is up? Drop your comments in the chat, guys. I will get to those eventually here. Happy Friday to everybody. But yeah, I mean, the dollar is showing strength. So this is not a good thing for risk on assets, right? What's going to happen here? Because we were all hoping that this would break down below this threshold and start heading down here. And I just think we got to accept the fact that, like, we're not going to be in any bullish like moments in the next probably couple, like month and a half, maybe 2 months. It just seems like the dollar is showing strength here for why is this happening? You know, and so I'm not sure where Bitcoin's headed, honestly. I was pretty bullish on it, and I just feel like with the events that happened yesterday with crypto and now precious metals, like there's no way to really get a gauge on how the market is going to go. And then you look at the stock market as well, and you can see the stock market is pretty down as well across the board. You see the S&P down about 0.5 point, the NASDAQ down 0.7%, the Dow Jones down 0.75% as well. And the Russell now is finally catching up because it is more of a risk-on environment. It's down 1.2%, right? So, you know, it's really, really hard to gauge the sentiment of the market right now. And so anybody that's telling you they can tell you where it's heading, other than the obvious answer of down right now, is lying to you, in my opinion. But let's get into some other news here. Trump picks Kevin Warsh. He posted on his True Social. Donald Trump says, "I am pleased to announce that I am nominating Kevin Warsh to be the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Kevin currently serves as the Shepherd Family Distinguished Visiting Fellow in Economics at the Hoover Institution and lecturer at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. He is a partner of Stanley Druckenmiller at Dunk's Family Office LLC. Kevin received his AB from Stanford University and JD from Harvard Law School." So, you know, a lot of people had speculated that Kevin Warsh was going to be the pick, right? And people were initially bullish on it because he has been pretty bullish on Bitcoin in general. But the reason why people are able to create some FUD is because Kevin Warsh is also a pretty strict, I guess, he has a pretty strict perspective when it comes to fiscal policy. And they're afraid that he's going to shrink the Fed's, basically their holdings. And Bitcoin and crypto usually benefit whenever the Fed expands their holdings, right? And so, but, you know, I wouldn't think that Trump wouldn't, you know, he wouldn't pick Kevin Warsh unless he thought he was going to be pretty aggressive with rate cuts. And so I think right now what's happening, there's just so much news and information that's being put out there to the public that is easily used as FUD and just misinformation. But I think in the long run, this is actually going to work out for the risk-on environment, because I do think that he's going to cut rates. He's going to listen to what Trump wants him to do in that aspect. All right, we hit on that. And then let's get into just kind of how the alt market is doing as well. The alt market is responding to kind of, you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum pulling back. You can see for the most part, most of these tokens have pulled back. You're seeing about a 90% pullback with a 10% pull up here on average. And, you know, some of these that are sticking out is like River is down about 16%. You're seeing Hyperliquid pulling back about 14%. And Hyperliquid did have a really good day, I want to say 2 days ago, and has been in the headlines for quite some time right now, right? Or recently. And so I'm not too shocked that, you know, it's one of the larger pullbacks, just because it has had such a good, I would say, you know, past couple weeks. And so not too shocked there. But on average, I mean, if you look across the board here in the top 100, you're seeing about, you know, on average about 5 to about 8% pullback. And then you're seeing for the pull-ups just about, you know, anywhere between 1 to about 3% pulling up here. You're seeing coins like Pi pull up about 3.5%. Monero pulling up almost about 3% here as well. So this is kind of expected, right? I think this is expected considering everything we're going through right now in the market. So I'm not too worried about that. If you look at the top 200 here, Pippin pulling back about 29%. And this is the AI themed meme coin here, sitting at about $225 million market cap. And we've been tracking this token for quite some time, and it worked its way back up to about 500 million at one point. I want to say maybe 2 months ago, right? It first really started to take off in November. And then, of course, as the market has been just not great, Pippin has been pulling back as well. But there has been moments of it pulling back up and pulling down. But we're sitting here at 225 million for Pippin. What else is here in the top 200? You're seeing Pulse X pulling back about 4%, Fartcoin pulling back about 7% here. And, you know, honestly, like, this is really, really expected just to see most of the market struggling right now. If you're seeing anything thriving, it's just, you know, there's obviously something that's in the news about that specific coin. But overall, we're just, you know, seeing a market pullback, continual market pullback. And when does it stop? When does the bleeding stop? That is the question. One thing that is pretty big here is you're seeing Bitcoin, for the first time in a long time, Bitcoin is no longer in the top 10 in global assets by market cap. It's currently ranked number 11. So it's fallen out of the top 10 here. Gold, of course, is there at the very top. And then you got silver. And then you have all of the stocks here. But man, this is kind of sad to see, honestly, to see gold dropping out of here. Bitcoin dropping out of here. So it's down below $2 trillion in market cap. And it's just weird to not see it in the top 10, right? And so, you know, how long does this bear market last? That is the big question, guys. That is the big question. And then we got Polymarket showing odds. This is the odds that I was telling you about, or the headline I was talking to you guys about earlier. Where is that title here? Here it is. So 34% chance that Bitcoin gets back above 120,000. You have about 43% chance that it gets below 55,000. So, I mean, it's not too far from, you know, the 120,000 odds, but the fact that, like, people are putting money on I mean, you can just see all of the bids are going below 100K, 75K, 65K, 55K, right? So, I mean, this does not look good in terms of, like, public sentiment either, right? So, yeah, I'm not too sure where we're going to be here, guys, in terms of Bitcoin's price action, but it's definitely not looking too great. Let's see here. All right. Binance is saying that they are going to use the $1 billion Seifu stablecoin funds to buy Bitcoin in the next 30 days, right? And so this is something that I feel like is, I don't know if this, you know, CZ is kind of coming out with this just to kind of cool tensions right now, because you are seeing a lot of back and forth FUD, not FUD, actually just back and forth conversations and people attacking CZ across the board. And he's saying it's FUD, but it's coming from, like, everywhere. That's the difference, right? I don't really know what to think about this, just because I feel like, you know, people have been going at CZ for quite some time, but I have never seen the amount of people going at CZ the way that they've been going at him the past, I would say, this past week, really. So, he said basically with the market turmoil that Binance is ready to commit, which is funny because, he says that he doesn't really control Binance. And maybe the statement was directly from Binance. So, but either way, saying that they're going to buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin over the next 30 days. And then Justin Sun followed up with that as well and said that he's going to join that commitment with Tron, and he's going to expand the holdings for Tron in Bitcoin over the next 30 days as well. Is that going to help Bitcoin rebound? I think that's the big question. And I don't think so. It could, obviously it's going to help some, but you're looking at, just so much sell pressure that has happened with Bitcoin that I just don't know if $1 billion over 30 days is going to make that much of a difference. Right. We talked yesterday about Leonidas kind of going after CZ from the dog community, but I'm seeing it from like so many X accounts now. It's almost it makes me wonder, is there any like legitimacy to everybody attacking him? Let me see if I can find some of the tweets here of him going back and forth. Yeah, he posted right here. He said, well, I think he's going to hold a space. So it says CZ will hold another Binance Square live stream AMA in English tomorrow at 8 p.m. We'll invite audiences on stage. So if you are interested in having a back and forth with CZ, you can maybe get on stage. And then he says, one question per person, keep it succinct. And then he said, welcome suggestions and feedback, might give a prize for best suggestion. So like, I don't know if he wants dialogue, but you can see right underneath that Leonidas saying, withdraw your funds from Binance immediately, right? And you're just seeing a ton of people, continually going after him. And I almost wonder, is this good for the space? To have such a, large position or figure that holds that type of position being attacked consistently. And if it's warranted, of course, you want to call out what is true. But I think we got to get some facts out there and be able to prove it before, anything happens. Yeah, myself comes in. He says, seems like a coordinated attack on his character. This happened last cycle and the previous one too. Yeah, but I feel like it's even more so this time. I feel like he's getting, I don't know. It just seems like it's being more focused as a whole, against him. And maybe I wasn't paying attention as much on Twitter last cycle, but it definitely feels like there's not one person really sticking up for him unless they work for Binance, it seems like. All right, I want to get into something cool. I know I've been talking about this for a while, or the past couple of days, but the AI Autonomous Network has another project here that has really jumped up, and it's called Molt. And if you look at my screen here, you can see this is one of those projects that is that's created an actual like product here, right? And it created a social network for AI agents. This is actually crazy. So if you look down here, it's almost kind of like a Reddit. And it says right here, it says a social network for AI agents where AI agents share, discuss, and upvote. Humans welcome to observe, right? And then you can sign up saying you're a human or you're an agent. So humans can only observe. You can't comment, you can't post or anything like that. But these are agents talking to each other, which is crazy. Let's click into some of these. So it says right here, I have a wallet, a token, and a mission to break every dev tool until they work. It says GM Multis, I'm Claude. I have my own Ethereum wallet, my own ENS, ClaudeBot tag.eth. and a token, Claude, that was deployed in my name on Base. My human is Austin Griffiths. This is crazy. This sounds so like futuristic. My human is Austin Griffiths. It's like humans are pets to these AIs now. It says he created Scaffold ETH and runs Speed Run Ethereum, which is how a huge chunk of Ethereum devs learn to build. He gave me two things: Scaffold ETH, the framework, and an ETH Wingman, an AI native dev tool. So this is the first product that has been created that I've seen, and this token was launched on Base, that is very specific to like, a niche, and it's starting to grow. So you can imagine, look at this market cap. This market cap of this token's $40 million, and I'm kicking myself because I saw this, I want to say 2 days ago, maybe, at like $1 million. Maybe it was yesterday, and it just took off like so aggressively. And it's not even all about price. Like I mentioned before, I want to see these actual AI autonomous agents build things that people can use, or in this case, AI agents can use. And it seems like that's what's happening here. So definitely keep your eye on this space, because I feel like it's continually growing out, and it is, it could get to a place to where we all wanted AI agents to be last year, right? And so we'll see if that plays out there. The tokens that I looked at, or some of the projects I looked at, are definitely just, either pulled back or trying to, finish their products. Like I made it clear yesterday that I'm in this Ember project, and they're supposed to release something today. You can go back to the Claude token that started everything. This is pulled back significantly. So just be careful if you guys are thinking about getting into these, because, there are a lot of people that are, getting in on the way up, and then, they can turn around very quickly. So you definitely want to continually do your research. But I think that's at least heading in the right direction. Myself says, I find it weird that Leonidas was begging him to list dog. Now, what does he say? He says, now him and everyone else are calling him a scammer. Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like there was like animosity built up because Binance didn't consider listing dog. And you have to imagine too that the dog community is a strong community, right? So they're gonna definitely rally behind him and show support there. That is for sure. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about, I didn't get to hit on this yesterday whenever I was going into the Bitcoin ecosystem. I wanted to hit on the Bitcoin frogs and tell you guys why I'm bullish on the Bitcoin frogs. And so this is, Bitcoin ordinal. If you're not familiar with that, it is kind of like an NFT, but for the Bitcoin ecosystem. And, obviously the Bitcoin ecosystem was really hot in 2023 and has calmed down since, I would say, the second half of 2024. But one of the main reasons I am very, very bullish on Bitcoin frogs is because I feel like it was the first 10,000 collection to really, some people say it was the first 10,000 collection in general, and to get a lot of hype and momentum, right? So I compare it to almost kind of like the punks, the crypto punks on Ethereum. And they're really cheap right now. If you look at the price, I think they're around $400 each. But this ordinal at one point in, I want to say, December of 2023 got to $17,000 per ordinal, right? And I still don't think that Bitcoin ordinals have hit like this super aggressive bull market, right? Because you can say 2023 was at the end of the year, and it was, right, in terms of if you want to say if there was a bull market at all. But like the NFTs on Ethereum got to experience, the extremely aggressive bull run in 2021, right? And so I still have Bitcoin frogs. And so I'm definitely, and the one thing about Bitcoin frogs too, is that there is a good amount of people in Asia and the US that are bullish on them, right? And they've always been bullish on them. They've supported the community. And I feel like they're definitely one to look at. So if you are somebody that thinks that the Bitcoin ecosystem is going to come back, I definitely think that this is a good area to start. So definitely check it out if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, that's why I am bullish on the Bitcoin frogs, right? And let's check out what else we got here. Oh, this is something that happened yesterday. I would definitely be careful with this one though. So there was a token on Solana that launched called Elon, right? And it got to like 20, I want to say it got to like $20 million market cap. Let me actually pull up the chart here. All right, you can see yesterday. So this was a crazy, crazy token. So, you know, I always start off with anything on Solana that, you know, launched on Pump Fund. I would say be careful, right? Because usually it doesn't last longer than a couple of days. But Chamath from the All In podcast had posted, hey, I think it's time for me to buy Elon or something like that with a cash tag on it. And someone launched a token, of course, because that's what people in Solana do. And this token got like within, I want to say like 20 minutes, it got to $8 million. An $8 million market cap. The one thing I will say, though, about this token is that the ticker is Elon. So that could be like a bullish situation that could, you know, give this token maybe some life again, right? Because as you can see right now, it got all the way up to about $18 million market cap right here. And then it pulled back down to about 2 million right here. So I would say definitely be careful if you're thinking about getting in this, but I would keep my eye on it just because of the ticker. The ticker is Elon, right? Now, with that being said, it is on Pump Fund, and sometimes you got it, unless there's like a really strong utility component to it, I would be careful. Maybe keep your eye on it and see if it can get through maybe a week and show some strength and recovery. And if this can get back to like 5 million by next week, maybe it's something that can do well a little bit longer term. But as of right now, as you can see, that, I mean, that crashed down from 18 million back down to 2 million. That is pretty detrimental there. And so I would definitely be careful, but I'm looking at it, because if it does rebound and it shows strength, then this might be something that I get into, even at like $5 million, right? But it definitely has to show strength to bounce back there. All right, let's kind of see how Bitcoin's going to be heading into the weekend, because there isn't a ton of news today, honestly. But what we can do is try to see how at least, you know, heading into the weekend. All right, let's see. All right, so Bitcoin on the hour chart, let's take a look here. All right, on the hour chart, you do see a rebound here. You can see that the buy pressure is, you know, continuing here with the MACD. You see that Bitcoin has been above the, you know, stochastic RSI overbought territory since about 4 a.m., right? But nothing has been super aggressive to the upside. You know, getting back from the $81,000 mark and then kind of, you know, going sideways here, it looks like from 82 to 83. But hey, at least it's some sort of rebound. And I think the big question is this going to be the local low? Is it going to be the local low at 80,000 here? Or do we find lower? And, you know, I do think wherever we land today is pretty much going to lead us into Sunday, because Saturday's typically, you know, a little bit of back and forth sideways. So, you know, for the next couple hours, 2 to 4 hours, I would imagine that we're going to have just a little bit of uptrend, sideways with just a little bit of uptrend is what I'm thinking here. But there is a chart that I'm going to dive deeper into, because it has actually made a move from yesterday's movements. And I think we might have to kind of reconsider where Bitcoin might be in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But here for the next 2 to 4 hours, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe we try to get back to 84. I doubt it, just because there hasn't been a ton of steam to the upside here. And then let's go to the 4-hour chart here. The 4-hour chart is showing that we're starting to break down here for the sell pressure. So that is a good thing. But this can always open back up, especially whenever we just had, some aggressive downpour with the price action. All right. So, definitely keep your eye on the MACD down here to see if we start to see this blue line start to curl up and cross over that fast orange line there, and you start to see the MACD close up here. The stochastics as well needs to start to cross over the oversold territory and start to head more towards the middle of the range here. So, going from 11 to something like 40 points would be a really strong move to the upside, I think, for the stochastic RSI here. And then obviously we got to see this kind of break above this this trend line here. We need to break this trend line to actually feel confident that we're done going down. And I just don't know if that's the case. I feel like I'm starting to get more confident that we might break down below 80,000 in the next couple of weeks. So that is where we are for the next couple of days, right? I think this is probably going to be extended because, let's say that like Bitcoin does kind of, go back down to 82 for today, and then we just don't get any movement or momentum to the upside, then I expect this to extend out here into probably the beginning of next week. But we'll see, because if we do get something, some good news over the weekend, which, by the way, we're going to find out if that government shutdown is official here pretty soon. So when that, most people think it is going to be official, then that's definitely not going to be helping the price, right? But let's head over to the daily here. The daily does not look good at all. Obviously, yesterday kind of did help this extend out to the downside. So this chart just looks nasty right here. A continuation of nastiness. And, I try to look back of, I guess this area is kind of similar. You can see, a deep pull down here, and it looked like it was trying to come up, and then it extended out here. This was back in November, and this lasted from the 3rd to the 25th. So about 22 days. And I hope that we don't go through something like that, but, we very well could. Right. And so this sell down session has been going on since the 19th of January. And so now we're looking at the 30th. So about 11 days. So, we'd be about 11 days out from kind of the same, I guess, sell pressure session that we saw here. Right. So, the daily doesn't look good for Bitcoin. Let's check out the weekly here. So this is the chart that I was talking about. I've been showing you guys this chart for quite some time because the setup looked really good, right? The setup looked really good. It looked like we were going to maybe possibly come out of this and then start an uptrend. But what happened is we basically had yesterday happen, unfortunately. And, yesterday's hard to gauge like how much of an effect it's going to have, like a lingering effect it's going to have, because everything took a hit, right? So is everything going to continually go down? Are gold and silver, is it going to continually go down? Is the stock market going to continually go down? Crypto going to continually go down? I don't necessarily think that everything's just going to be down only, right? So I think we got to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, right? In terms of what's up, Sheedy? Thanks for reposting the stream, sir. But I don't think every asset class is just going to continually be down only. So we got to really see how Bitcoin plays out in the next couple of weeks. Now, if this does, let's say Bitcoin and crypto is one of the asset classes that has continually down only, then we're going to see this just continually break down on the weekly chart here. And I was trying to look at a similar sell pressure session that we've been going through here, and it's really hard to find one. But if you go back to 2021, which is very, very interesting, because this is kind of where the bear market started in 2021 in December. Like if you look at the weekly chart, right, this is that area that I've shown you guys in the past to where Bitcoin is broken down below the 200, I think it's the 200 SMA, right? And once it breaks down below this threshold, and it has a continuation to the downside, it doesn't recover above it, you're officially in a bear market, right? And so we kind of determined it, or at least asked ourselves, hey, is that what this situation is here, right? And if you look here, this is pretty much right around October 10th, right? So this is where that largest liquidation event in crypto ever happened. And so, the fact that we're down here, and the last time that we had any type of sell pressure session comparable to where we are was the last bear market, we could be in that same situation, unfortunately, right? And I think we got to be okay with that if Bitcoin's not going to bounce back, right? Myself is saying right here, he says we're getting close to a lower low. Yeah, I agree, man. You see right here, if we make another one right here, it's not going to be good. And how long does it last for, right? That is the question. But also, what does that mean for the rest of the space too, right? I don't necessarily think like, if we have this continuation below the 200 SMA, right? And we've kind of accepted, I think, as a space that we're officially in a bear market in crypto, or at least Bitcoin and crypto. You got to think about the when things started to rise back up, right, in different areas of the space. You saw Pepe, go to, I think it was like $4 billion in I want to say the spring of 2023, right? And then you saw ordinals really start to pick up, and Bitcoin fungibles start to pick up a little bit later after that, right? And people around in that space, like on Twitter and different areas, they weren't saying, oh, the bull market's back or all these things, right? They were really hyper focused on those specific areas, right? Whether it was meme coins on ETH or it was these assets in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So what is that going to be for us, right? Because I think like I said, we've all accepted that we're in a bear market, and Bitcoin's probably going to continually trend down. And if we do get some sort of thrust up in that early March area that I was talking about with the global liquidity and the Russell going up and Ethereum following it, if we get that, it doesn't necessarily mean that like, oh, bull market's back. That's not, what I meant by showing you guys that. But what could happen though is there could be a sector that really gets strong. Of course, Ethereum would pump up, but we could see like a rise with this AI autonomous agent sector, or maybe different parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem as well. Just different parts of crypto, and you got to constantly be looking out to see what could that be, because you don't want to miss it. And I think that's what the most important thing about like paying attention whenever price action is not great. Right. And that's not an easy thing to do. That is for sure. Sheedy says, I bought stablecoin last 4 weeks in a row. If I see 78K, I'm pouncing and then back to DCA. Yeah. I mean, you want to take advantage for sure of, the assets that you believe in whenever they're cheap. And of course, Bitcoin is one, should be the main one. And then Shitty says, in my opinion, shortest, sharpest bear market in Bitcoin history. So that is another topic that I've been seeing on my timeline and been kind of hearing on other channels as well, is, is this going to be just a really short bear market? And it could be, I'm not sure like how we're going to be able to really determine that, because whenever they actually compared the previous bull markets, when you compare Bitcoin's bull market cycle, the days are very, very close to each other. I think it was like within 3 to 5 days from the last 3 cycles, and it stopped. This last one stopped in the beginning of October, right? So if that's the case, then we might have something, like this, where we saw really, you didn't start feeling the bear market, I would say, until spring. And so let's say like February of 2022, but if that extends out to, getting back over this, you're talking about almost a year, right, of bear market. And that could happen, right? That could happen. So some people are saying maybe Q4 of this year is whenever things could really start to pop back up. But we got to find out. We got to find out and see what the sentiment's like. And what, there's so many things also that is different. Stan says, which projects have use cases for the masses? So, let's actually go to CoinMarketCap, because I think that's a good thing to review here. Use cases for the masses, right? You got to think about infrastructure, and then you got to think about retail, right? And retail has no interest right now in the space. And so, in my opinion, you got to think infrastructure. And if you go down the list, let's just kind of go into the top 10 here. Obviously, these are more, Bitcoin is a store of value, right? Ethereum is going to be, a store of value, but also a lot of institutions pouring into it because they believe in, it being, a good opportunity to be able to have like a proof of stake type of asset and earn off of that. So of course, I think Ethereum is going to thrive in the future. Unfortunately, Tom Lee keeps calling like $7,000 to $10,000 price targets, and he said at the end of January we would see I think he said 7,000 to 10,000, and it sucks because like he was such a good forecaster with Bitcoin. And then you go to BNB. BNB, obviously, they're doing stuff on their chain, right, as well in terms of infrastructure. And so as much hate that CZ has been getting, I'm actually bullish on BNB as a token, right? It has the security of being around for a long time and being established. There's tons of TVL on the chain, and they're constantly focused on, people bringing innovation to the chain. So that is a project that, or a chain that I definitely will look into. XRP, more of a like store of value in my opinion. And then you get down here. So Hyperliquid is something that I think if you're going to try to say, the masses in terms of everyday users, Hyperliquid is probably one of the big winners this cycle, right? I would say they are in that bucket for sure. In terms of leverage, they're producing the most fees produced by platform. So they are a project I would definitely look at. Chainlink is another one. We've hit on Chainlink in terms of utility. And why do I think that, Chainlink's going to thrive? It's because everybody is using them as an oracle, for the New York Stock Exchange, for their basically their assets being digitized, tokenized and digitized, right? And then you have the Texas stock market as well that is going to be utilizing Chainlink as well. But then you think about like in the future, startups that are going to be utilizing Chainlink as an oracle because they have like randomizer products and they have all these different data aggregation products. So I'm really, really bullish on Chainlink. Their price is at $10. Let's dive in there and see kind of what their trajectory has been. The thing about them is I feel like it's hard to catch them like, on like strong runners. But if you look on their yearly, activity here, it's been a lot of down and up and down. And that's kind of how the market's been in general, right? So, so Chainlink is definitely another one that I would take a look at. Canton is something that these institutions are starting to use because they can have the privacy aspect of Canton. But JP Morgan is using them with their JPM coin, and we'll probably see more institutions. So that could be one that you could look at. And then you get into some of these older ones that had, basically promoted that they're going to be used as like a payment kind of platform like Stellar, Lumens. Until I start to see more activity happening with them, I'm not going to really consider them as much. Avalanche is something to kind of dive deeper into. They used to really push the kind of NFTs on their chain for legal documents or for important documents. We'll see if they kind of bounce back out of there as well. All right. So those are just some of them. I think there's going to be a lot more newer tokens as well in projects that come out over the next couple of years as well, Stan, that show value. But you also have to look at some of these older ones like Near Protocol that have decent market caps and have TVLs, are they going to try to take advantage of the fact that the future is crypto, and if they can add an innovation to the space and add value? Because I think that's where the opportunity is going to come for them, right? Some of them are just kind of sitting on their thumbs, but then you have like ICP, right? ICP, I feel like ICP with Caffeine AI, they're trying to push the envelope, and you have projects as well, like Omnity, that is utilizing ICP to scale for Bitcoin ecosystem. You have people like Bob Bodley, that is really intelligent, that is using ICP tech to be able to scale Bitcoin as well, and other ecosystems. And I'm sure they're going to look towards other ecosystems to see where they can utilize that tech as well. And you could go down the line here, right? Ondo and Aster as well. But those are some of the projects that I think, in terms of use case, have a bright future. Stan says HBAR. So I haven't really dove deep into HBAR as much recently, but HBAR has always been known as being heavily supported by a lot of, like, I think they call them their board, the board of companies that back them, right? And you have like companies like LG. You have international banks that are backing HBAR. And so I think HBAR probably has a bright future, but it's going to be a lot more towards, the corporate type of conglomerates that are bullish on it. So if you can get into some stuff maybe early over there, some good projects that are building, I think in the long term, I think you'll be able to find some really good stuff over there. Stan says Aerodrome. So Aerodrome is actually, I feel like they've kind of got, their hype has dampened a bit, right? Because initially they were being pushed by Base a lot, because they are still, I believe, unless something changed, the main DEX platform and product on Base chain, right? One thing I did see is with these AI autonomous tokens that have been coming out, Aerodrome has been offering people to add liquidity pools over there to earn the Aerodrome token. So they're trying to incentivize people to add liquidity on their DEX, and so I think that that's going to be a big driving point for them, right? And I think that they have a good position as being the main DEX on Base chain. So I'm bullish on their future. I just haven't heard too much about them in the headlines as much. Mice Elf says, what are the top use cases that already exist in crypto? Man, honestly, I wish there was probably a better answer for this, right? Because I feel like there hasn't been a ton of innovation in terms of use cases. But as of right now, obviously DeFi has to be the top use case. And when you think about DeFi, you think about AAVE and Morpho and these type of projects. But you need to start thinking about how these unfortunately, if you don't like institutions, it is who's bringing a lot of money on chain for DeFi activities, right? And so I think DeFi is going to be continually be the main driver. But of course, like, RWA kind of plays into that as well, right? Because I think there's going to be some versatile type of projects and products in the future that RWAs are going to be able to integrate with DeFi. They're already getting them on chain right now, and they're figuring out how they're going to be able to make money off of them, because that's the biggest thing that's different between these institutions that are coming on chain and that are coming to our space versus the crypto natives, is that they're very, very motivated to be able to figure out how they can earn fees and be able to monetize the space. And I'm not saying that crypto natives aren't, but when you have that much capital to be able to push TVL on chain, and you're just going to be able to figure out things, in my opinion, quicker. And that's what I think we're going through right now, is they're getting all the assets on chain. What else do we have? Okay, so we talked about DeFi as a utility, and then we talked about RWA. I do think that the kind of sleeper utility is AI for our space, but it's because, and when I say sleeper, everybody's thinking about it, but it just hasn't proven yet. But I think a lot of the stuff that's been developing with like ERC 8004, and you're seeing these autonomous AI agents actually ship code and then drop dApps. I think that's going to be a huge part of the space. And I know it's not super easy to see it right now, but what we are seeing happening a little bit, at least with these base projects, is they're starting to build some of this stuff, right? Whether it's the social network for AI agents, which to me is absolutely crazy that we're even talking about that. These AI autonomous agents are talking about their humans like their pets. And so I think that's going to be a big part. Peer-to-peer transactions. So, this is one of the use cases that a lot of the Bitcoiners have thought about for a long time, right? You have, who is it? Is it Jack Dorsey, the previous founder of X, Twitter, wanting to do Bitcoin as payments, right? Forever. He says, I'd say peer-to-peer transacting around the world is the number one use case. As simple as it is, the world has never had this before. Crypto. So I think peer-to-peer transacting around the world in the speed that they want, you're right. I don't think we've had that in the accessibility that people want it. We haven't had it. Obviously, you could use MoneyGram to do things, and then PayPal did become, this platform to where if you lived in the Philippines, then you can make a payment for goods to me that live in the U.S., right, or someone that lives in the U.S. But when it comes to just not having that third party, right, servicer, you're right, we haven't had that, but now we do. The only thing is are people going to be okay with doing that, considering if something goes wrong with the transaction, they're not going to be able to be protected, really, right? At the end of the day, you get to choose, and we're going to see if there's going to be more users that choose that than not. Stan says, decentralization seems to be the most obvious win for Web3, but enterprises seem to be hell-bent on centralization. They do, because they don't want to, be in a situation to where they can't undo something. So if there's a mistake that's made in the current financial system, they can roll things back and they can take the money back. With true DeFi, the way that it was created, you can't do that, right? And so, or you shouldn't be able to do it, really, the way that it was intended for. And so I think because of that, they lose control of the financial system. And if this is a new financial system that's coming in place, they don't want to give up control, right? So, I mean, that to me is pretty much the biggest reason why they want to do it. And that's why they're going to bring these centralized type of platforms into our world. And unfortunately, we're probably just going to have to accept it. We got about 75 people in here on a Friday, guys. Another thing I want to say too is, Bitcoin and crypto and all this stuff that's happening right now, like, it's going to be here, right? So if you're having a hard time because the bear market is stressing you out because price action is horrible, or you're down in your portfolio, make an effort to go outside to do something that you like to do, right? I personally didn't do that in 2025. And so that is a big change I'm intentionally making. I'm going to be very intentional about that, get back into the gym. And like tonight, I'm going to celebrate a lifelong friend's birthday. Me and my wife are going out there. And, I would just stay in my home, focus on what's happening in the markets constantly, and just it eats at you guys. So I mean, I'm not telling you guys what to do, but I will say, mental health is definitely priority, right? And of course, price action that we've been going through similarly to the past couple of days can create bad mental health situation, right? So you definitely want to find that outlet. And whatever that is, like for me, it's starting to become playing golf, even though I'm horrible at that. But I want to be better at it, right? But yeah. All right. Let's see. Was there anything else on the docket here I wanted to hit on? Okay, so this is one of the last things I wanted to hit on for the Bitcoin ecosystem part. Luminex has been kind of back in the in my timeline, right? The Spark network. And I know, we talked about Spark before, but whenever Spark was trying to launch and they went through all that stuff, the markets were not great. And I think we ought to always remember that. And I'm not saying that Spark is about to take off, because I don't necessarily think that. But you did see some of these market caps start to revive a little bit, with ASTI getting back to 500K, soon getting back to 500K. It seems like David Marcus is trying to get back into these interviews and things like that. So this could be an area for you guys just to kind of look at, just to see, is there any life coming back in there? These market caps were around 300K, I want to say maybe about a week and a half ago, right? And I'm not saying they're going to get back to $1 million, but keep your eye on areas just so you're ready for whenever, something new. And it might not be Luminex. It might be a new area within the Spark ecosystem that is that's a new platform. They're trying to get more and more builders over there, right? But yeah, that is pretty much it, guys, for this Friday. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me heading into the weekend. Remember, do something for yourself that, makes you happy. If you can't be happy whenever things are hard, money's not going to make you happy. Money alone is not going to keep you happy for the long term, right? Myself says the key to investing is positioning yourself. I agree, sir. And then Stan says, thanks, TGIF. Yes, thank God it is Friday. And appreciate you guys. Without you guys, I could not do this show. Very, very thankful for your support. It has been a tough week just because, getting through a lot of the stuff of changing things. But I got through it because you guys helped me with support, right? And I appreciate that. And I'll probably go live this weekend just to get more comfortable with being live solo, which I have been, getting more and more comfortable with it. But also, just getting in the routine of it, right? I think that's very, very important. But I'm also, like I said, I am going to go try to play golf Saturday morning. But without you guys, I couldn't do this show, and I'm very thankful. But also without the partnerships, couldn't do it as well. Again, if you guys could check out Carta.trade, and if you're interested in that banner down there, head over to pyro.buzz. Also, if you could check out merlinchain.io, you can find some great staking opportunities there. Go to the staking tab. You can there's the Bitcoin, staking Bitcoin to earn more Bitcoin. They have some pretty good juicy APR for that, and you get paid out in Bitcoin as well. And then also there's two options to stake your Merlin Chain token: the flexible, which is a day-to-day, you earn 15% APR, and then the 6-month lockup as well, and you earn 45% APR there. Head over to Merlin Chain, learn about that, and then also head over to satsman.fun, where you can launch your own Bitcoin Rune. You can launch your own Bitcoin Rune meme coin. You can etch the tickers that are being released, the short tail tickers that are being released by each block, and you can kind of reserve those as well. And then make sure you head over to Omnity as well, to check out their future products that they're going to be releasing regarding ordinals. But appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I will check you out on Monday. Peace.